The Marty and Laura Show is brought to you by Veterinary Village. With locations throughout Wisconsin, Veterinary Village is dedicated to enhancing the quality of animal and human lives today and into the future.
I feel like church lady.
Welcome to the Marty and Laura Show. We are here. Marty is continuing her world tour. You guys have got to check in to the YouTube today because Marty is in her van with her Ruffland crates behind her. Shout out Ruffland, just saying. And we are going to talk today about our senior dogs. And so while Marty and I try to bring some levity to your lives, today's going to be one of those topics where we're all going to try not to cry. And those of us who have lots and lots of dogs have been through this more times than we want to discuss. Some folks are blessed to, get dogs for a really long, 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 long life. And some folks aren't. And so we're gonna go through all of the permutations of that. And we're going to talk about helping our dogs live long lives and then what it looks like when they start to reach the end of their lives. So, how you doing, babe? You doing good?
I'm great. Yeah. So to be clear, we're not driving.
That's
I am parked at the banquet at our regional specialty, and I left my husband in for the rest of the judges'
right,
comments and the bidding
right,
so that
right.
we don't
He's
miss
going
any
to bid on the
opportunities. So,
auction items, which is the important part of
oh,
any specialty
yeah.
event.
Sometimes he needs some guidance. I'm a
I
little
was
worried
just going
about
to
leaving
say,
him
you
alone.
left Dr. Dan with the checkbook. This is a bad idea.
Yeah, this could have a bad outcome. The
Could
only
be
good
bad.
news is there's no Yvette stained glass on the
Okay.
auction,
All
and
right, good.
usually there is,
Okay.
and then it gets dangerous.
That's bad. That's super bad. Okay. So let's do this so you can so you can get in there and rescue your bank account from Dr. Dan at the auction. um so I like you, like many of us have, been through old dogs dying, young dogs dying, all the things. And so what I want to do is a quick piece on how do we give our dogs the best chance for a long life. Let's start there.
Okay, so preventive care is going to be probably the most important.
Mhm.
And that means routine blood work, that means routine dental cleanings, that means the right nutrition. So there's some really important things that we can do for them that are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. They're not always easy, but they're pretty straightforward. So the pet food companies have come out with some amazing diets for senior dogs
Mhm.
and senior cats. They even make a cognitive dysfunction diet for cats combined with the arthritis diet right now. There are several companies that have diets on the market for the aging dog that has cognitive decline
Yep.
or to try and preemptively prevent
Bright
cognitive decline.
Minds, I think, is the Purina product. I'm not familiar with the
That,
real canine.
yeah, Bright Minds Purina is the over-the-counter product. They have
Right.
a prescription food
Okay.
called NeuroCare, which has 3 times
Oh,
the amount
wow.
of fatty acid, anti-inflammatory in it
Wow.
that Bright Minds has. And Bright Minds basically improves their cognitive function, so it's a really important
Mhm.
diet. Hills came to market a number of years ago, probably 15 or 20 years ago with BD, which is their brain diet slash behavior diet. So that came to
Okay.
market. Royal Canin has a couple of senior dog diets and senior cat diets. So we have
Mhm.
options out there, and they're all really good diets to help improve cognitive function, reduce the burden on kidney function by reducing the amount of protein, having a high quality but low quantity protein. They've got the right um, electrolytes. Some of them have L-carnitine in it, which helps
Mm.
with preventing too much weight gain. Some of them have a higher fiber amount in them so that their stools are better. They don't end up with constipation, which
Mhm.
older dogs will tend to have issues with, and it also reduces their weight, their caloric intake. Um, so there's quite a few things that we can do really preemptively and really simply. You've got to feed them.
Right.
So you might as well feed them something that's going to help prevent some of the issues that we know are going to happen as dogs and cats age. So I think that's really important. and going in for a routine blood work. People are like, oh,
Mhm,
no, I don't need it. He's fine. No, you're going to be surprised at what kind of things we can find and
mhm,
preemptively get
mhm,
ahead of, whether it's kidneys, whether it's liver function issues, whether it's heartworm disease or some of the tick-borne diseases,
mhm.
other disorders that we can see. So if your veterinarian says, I think we should do blood work this year, and it's usually an annual thing, then you should do this with your head,
Right?
go
Yes.
up and down with
Yes.
your head and say, yes, yes, I think we should do that. And then proceed with that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and if you feel like your pet is losing weight or is gaining too much weight or they're not being normal, acting normal, eating the way they should, acting the way they should, go in sooner rather than later. Don't wait until they're in trouble to go in and get help.
Right. So two things that I know we have talked about other times, but I want to just bring forward again because I think, in my experience, they're really super critical. One is weight and a good, healthy weight, not obese. And the other is dentals. And so I want to start with dentals because I'm in this boat right now. I have a 12, 13-year-old Chihuahua who was just in for her phenobarb, exam to make sure that she was doing well with her phenobarbital levels because she had an injury and now she has seizures and blah, blah, and the comment was that the last few teeth she has left are being held in by tartar. And I'm like, that's really gross. But I'm
Mhm.
also, she's a 5 pound dog and she's like 12 or 13 years old. So I'm really
So,
nervous about that. So
why?
talk to me about it.
Why? Age is not a disease. And size is not an issue. I mean, I have done 17-year-old dog dentals on
Mm,
chihuahuas that are,
mm,
I've put dogs under anesthesia that are 2 pounds. I've put dogs under anesthesia that are 17 and 18 years old. I put a cat under anesthesia that was 22, older than the technician, the certified veterinary technician that was working for me at the time. So age is not a disease. There are medical conditions that are diseases, but age is not a disease. So you should be more afraid of the dental disease and the
okay.
damage that it's causing to the heart, to the
Right.
liver, to the kidneys, to all the other organs than you should be of the anesthesia. Because well done, anesthesia is very safe regardless of the age of the patient. So you should loosen up a little bit. And if she needs to have those last 5 remaining teeth removed,
There's going
then
to be
that's
no
what you
teeth
should do.
left. There's going to
Yeah.
be no teeth.
But they can gum their food or you can adjust their food so that they can
We've
still
already
eat.
started soaking it because she was having a
Mhm.
hard time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear the snoring behind me? That's Emmy Lou, just to be clear, it's not, remember Emmy Lou when she crawled in
We
my
do
lap that one
remember.
show? Yeah.
We do
Well,
remember
Emmy
Emmy
Lou's,
Lou.
yeah. Emmy Lou's
Hi. No, we
snoring
can't
now.
hear it, but we love it. We
Oh,
think
well,
that's
I can.
adorable.
I
It's
was afraid you could hear it.
adorable. And a testament to our dogs being so okay. Segue. I am sorry, but I am gonna go here. Part of how we keep our dogs alive longer is we put them in dog crates when we ride in cars.
Yes, because car accidents can be very rapidly fatal
Mhm.
to dogs that are unsecured. Just they can be a missile through the car, they can be a missile through the windshield. Airbags, when they deploy if the dog's in the front seat, can be damaging to dogs. So, absolutely positively, my dogs do not ride out of a crate any more than my kids rode out of a seatbelt or a car seat.
Right.
So it is a hard and fast rule. And if you go to the Rufflin Kennel website, or their Facebook page, you can see trucks that were like the crates were in the trucks. The truck was damaged beyond all recognition, and the kennel is sitting in the back of the truck like, I'm good. Like, it is amazing. I have crates that are custom made for the back of my Suburban or my Subaru. And so we can have really effective and very safe and really important safety things for our dogs to protect them because in an instant, you can go from being, just cruising on the highway at 65 miles an hour to being in an accident. And I actually have one client who I know died in a car accident because she had an unfriendly dog that was made even more unfriendly by the fact that she was in a very serious car accident. When
Mm.
the EMTs tried to get her out of the vehicle, the dog would not let them. So she died, and I'm quite sure that if they could have gotten her out, they could have saved her. So the dog basically was, and you think your dog is friendly and nice until it gets thrown around in a car, gets disoriented, doesn't understand what happened, got hit by the airbag, and now there are strangers trying to bust into your car. They're not the same nice dog that you've been living with. So please keep your dog safe and keep yourself safe. I've rolled a car.
Mhm.
with my kids and my cat in it. And if my cat hadn't been in a crate and if my kids hadn't been in seatbelts, I mean, we landed wheels up. I
Yeah.
called my husband and said, yeah, you should probably come back. We're in the ditch. And he's like, okay. So he turns the truck around, comes back, and he came around the corner and said, when I saw the car, you didn't mention that it was wheels up in the ditch. And I said, well, I didn't really want to frighten you because we're all okay. He's like, maybe you could have mentioned the wheels. I'm like, why? So that you would be upset for an extra 10 minutes? No, you saw that we were fine. It's okay. Seatbelts and crates
Yeah.
save lives.
Yeah. I too have a story. My mom, for those of you who know me and have known me a long time, my mom was almost killed in a car accident. She was taking puppies to the vet for health certificates, and she had two Clumber puppies and two Wear Hair Pointer puppies in the back of the Honda Civic wagon in their crates. And she was almost killed.
Mhm,
Like, your body holds however many X number of units of blood, and she lost most of them. Um, she was trapped in the car. They had to take jaws of life to get her out. She broke most of everything. She was in the hospital for 3 months. The dogs were all fine.
mhm.
One of
Yeah.
them, the two Clumbers, had their crate had flown out of the back of the car and broken, and they were still okay. And one of the Clumbers was out kind of cruising around in the field next to the accident site, and the other one was curled up around her
Mhm,
next to the door of the car. So when I say dog crates save lives and seatbelts
mhm,
save lives,
mhm.
real
Yeah.
life. So,
Yeah.
okay, that's enough of that downer topic. Fat dogs.
Oh, yeah. Obesity is
Let's
a
move on.
very,
Let's move
yeah.
on to something a little lighter hearted. I'm a
Yeah.
little fluffy. I think all of us can
Yeah.
consider ourselves a little fluffy, but the extra weight on dogs is particularly abusive to their system. There's been studies, many of them were done by Purina, actually, by dog food companies. So talk to us about that.
Right. So obesity absolutely positively has a negative impact on longevity. And obesity means anything over about 30% over the expected body weight. The biggest problem we have in the US is that the American public's eye has been trained to look at a dog that's obese and consider it to be normal.
Yeah.
When you see dogs in the show ring, dogs in the performance events like hunt tests and field trials, dogs that are at an ideal body condition, even veterinarians, especially clients, but even veterinarians tend to think that that dog looks too skinny.
Hmm.
And that's simply because we have normalized the fact that these dogs are typically overweight. So the way I tell people to check their dog's weight is number one, ask your veterinary professional if they are accurate. And sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. So I like to look back at the weight that they were when they were about 10 to 15 months old.
Mm.
That gives you a pretty good idea of that, depending on the breed of dog when they go through puberty, gives you a pretty good idea of what their body weight should be. So if they weighed 62 pounds at that age, then they should stay at 62 to 65 pounds. They should not be 90 pounds. So, look at their at puberty body weight. The other thing is, I like to have people do this with their hand, make a fist.
Hmm.
And if you put your finger across the back of your hand, that's how your dog's ribs should feel. If they feel like your knuckles, they're too skinny unless you have an Iberian hound or, some other sighthound type dog, and then they should feel like that. So this is too skinny, this is just right, and if you feel like the ball of your hand just above your wrist, they too fluffy. They're fat. So
Hey,
you need to talk
Dolphy.
to your veterinary professional about how to get weight off of your dog. Now, getting back to the Purina study, you will notice on Purina commercials that you will oftentimes hear the line at the end that says, Purina dog chow fed correctly will help your dog live longer. Well, I didn't really understand that line until I met Dennis Lawler, who is a veterinarian and a colleague of mine that I have known for a few years now. I haven't known him my whole life, but I've known him for a few years. He used to work for Purina. He is a veterinary scientist, and he was the person who did the 11-year study that Purina did. No other pet food company will ever do an 11-year study because it was mucho expensive to have dogs in a breeding or in a feeding colony for 11 years. So basically what they did is they took litter mate matched pairs, so sister sister or brother brother. They let one of the sisters or one of the brothers eat all the Purina dog chow that their little heart desired. They would put out 4 cups a day. The dog would eat 4 cups a day. That was great. That's what the dog got. The litter mate matched pair, so the sibling of the same sex, was fed 3/4 of that. So if the big dog ate 4 cups a day, the little dog was fed 3 cups a day. So basically a 25% caloric reduction.
Mhm.
And they found that those dogs, number one, had less arthritis on x-rays, not just clinically were able to walk better, but on x-ray, they could see that there was a difference in the amount of arthritis that was developing in the joints by the extra weight. And number two, those dogs lived 2 years longer. That's 2 years in dog world. And although we can't say that it's a 1-to-7 ratio, in um, when you do this, it does that. Um,
Okay, you guys, if you are watching on YouTube, I'm just busting up right now. I'm telling you, you have got to go watch the YouTube because Marty's making balloons go up. I'm not sure how she's doing it, but it's crazy.
it's 2 fingers. I'm
Okay.
not sure either, but if you put up 2 feet, maybe it'll do it for you. I don't know. You could try it.
I
Anyway, if dogs live 2 years longer, and it's not a 1-to-7 ratio like we've often been told, basically the way we calculate dog age is they go through puberty at around somewhere between 8 and 15 months of age,
right.
large breed dogs later than small breed dogs. So if you have a Shih Tzu, it's going to go through puberty around 8 or 9 months. If you have a Great Dane, it's going to be closer to 15 to 18 months. So that kind of gives you an idea. So that's the first 21 years of their life, basically until you reach puberty and a little bit beyond. After that, it's basically a 1-to-3 ratio. But again, large breed dogs tend to live less time than small breed dogs. So
Right.
you have to take that into account. And there are charts you can go and find online and find at your veterinary clinic that kind of give you the ratios, but it's not a flat 1-to-7 ratio.
Right.
Anyway, if a dog lives 2 years longer because they were kept at an
Mhm.
ideal body weight,
Mhm.
that's a pretty great gift. Like if I walk into the exam room and say to a client, if you can get 20 pounds off of your dog, I can buy you 2 more years of life. And I don't know any client that comes to our practice and says, I was ready 2 years ago for him to die. I'm all good. No, none of us ever feel that way or think that way or say those things. I euthanize dogs at an unfortunate rate because of that's what the reality of veterinary practice is. And it's not that people are doing it out of convenience. They're doing it out of love for their pet because they have reached a part of their life that it is no longer a comfortable and reasonable existence for them. So they have to make decisions. And so at that point, you have to do the euthanasia. And no one ever says, yep, 2 years ago, it was good. This extra 2 years, it wasn't meaningful to me. That
Mm.
doesn't happen. Now, there's a really cool book. There's a lot of good books out there.
We say this
There's one
every
called,
time, you guys, and there's
I
always
know,
links in the show notes. So just so you know.
I know. So there's a really good book about living with your dog with cancer. Currently, it's at
Mhm.
Dogwise for $1 a piece. It's
Mhm.
$10 if you go to their website. It's $1 if you buy it in real life. My favorite current book is Promises to My Pet, and it was written
Mhm.
by a social worker who wanted to help people go through the process of
Mhm.
learning the steps that they needed to go through to let their pet go. And basically they go in and they you can take pictures from your dog when it was young and you can put all kinds of things in there, but essentially what you're doing is you're promising your dog or your cat that you are not extending their life beyond what you think would be reasonable. And it's really hard to be reasonable at the end because you're emotional, you're fraught with guilt, you feel like you should have done more. I mean, that's the emotions that we go through every time that there's a euthanasia is I feel like I could have given him a better life, done a better job, given her more time.
Right.
And so this is a tool. It's about a 40-page book with a lot of blank pages in it for you to fill in, and it helps you go through the process and you can take that to your veterinary professional. I personally give them to clients at our practice when they come in with that dog and you can see that it's approaching the time that we have to have a
Mhm.
conversation. And for some of my younger doctors who are inexperienced, it's a very difficult conversation to broach. And so sometimes you have to say it to the client as a veterinary professional. Sometimes the client has to say it to you. But this book is a tool for you to start the conversation. And then we send it home as a workbook for clients to put the photos in and to make the notes in and to go back to the memories that when they were young, when they were middle aged, and kind of the process of it's approaching the time for me to let my pet go, and so I need this tool to help me think it through. And I do have clients that come in and when they start to get to that point, I have a conversation with them and say, "Look, this is serious. It's not going to be much longer. I don't want you to end up at an emergency clinic on a weekend or in the middle of the night and have them when you were prepared to say, it's time. The next time I go in, it's time. I don't want you to go to that referral center and have them twist your arm and spend five or six or $10,000 in the middle of the night, only to find that there was nothing more you could do because we already knew your dog had end stage kidney failure, end stage cancer, end stage, something. So I try to do my best to prepare our clients for those eventualities, but it's not always easy, and it doesn't always work well because it's hard to be reasonable, rational in the middle of the night when there's a crisis. I mean, let's just face it, we don't make good decisions at 2 in the morning. Whether it's to have another drink or whether it's to euthanize our pet, it's never a good decision at 2 in the morning. So you need to be honest with your veterinary professional and they need to be honest with you. And I try to promise my clients, just like this person promises to my pet, try to promise to my client that I'm going to help you make the decision. You're not doing this on your own. And I think that's, a really important relationship for you to develop with. Maybe it's not your veterinarian, maybe it's your veterinary technician, maybe it's the receptionist, maybe it's somebody else at the practice, maybe it's a friend of yours, and
Mhm.
you have to have a very straightforward, honest conversation with them before you're in a crisis to say, stop me, take the credit card out of my hand, and do not let me spend $10,000 because that's going to be fraught with regret because if you're end stage, there's not a long-term outcome. Now it's different if it's a 4-year-old dog that has a pyometra or a 6-year-old dog
Right,
that gets hit by a car and there's some hope of good recovery and good lifespan
right.
afterwards. But when you get into that really elderly age group and the dog is frail,
Mhm,
the dog has
mhm.
an end stage disease or the cat, please have someone on your side because you are not going to make good decisions.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Doggett simplifies the puppy buying journey by connecting families with the perfect breed and responsible, health verified breeders. They are the only breeder marketplace that verifies health clearances and responsible breeding practices. Through their personalized puppy matcher tool and matchmaker services, they educate and guide buyers every step of the way, ensuring a seamless process and a perfect match for their lifestyle. From initial breed consultation to introductions with top breeders, Doggett makes responsible puppy ownership easy and stress-free.
Another topic that we have covered, sort of hit and miss in other places, talking about almost as sundowners, right?
Hmm.
The senility kind of when we see our dogs start to do weird things as they age.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I thought this was a really important topic, and I wonder if you could just kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, and we've known that dogs have an aging syndrome. It's not quite Alzheimer's. There's
Right.
probably some differences, and there's a number of different things in people that cause senility and those kinds of changes that aren't all Alzheimer's. So we don't have it as well classified as we do in people, and even in people, we don't have great command of this. And recently, they've started to report it in cats. Anyway, in dogs, it's called canine cognitive dysfunction,
Yeah.
CCD. So if you type in those words, canine cognitive dysfunction, it will bring up a list of about 10 or 15 traits that, again, we'll put a link on the website for this,
Mhm.
that help you to realize that those are the changes that you're seeing. The dog goes outside and forgets to urinate or have a stool while they're out there because they forgot what they were out there for. They get behind the door, and instead of going through the doorway, they go to the corner, where the hinge is, and they can't get out. They get stuck in the corner.
Right.
They may not hear you well, they may not see you well, and that may be that it's not that they actually don't hear you or see you. It may be that they don't process what they're actually hearing or seeing because
Mm.
it's not connecting the dots.
Right.
Um, it may be that they no longer jump up when you walk in the door and greet you. There's a number of different changes.
Right.
They lose housebreaking skills, and those are all things that we see in dogs and cats. Now, a number of years ago, a drug came to market called Anapril. It's selegiline on the generic side
Mm.
that can reduce the effects of that. On the human side, it's used in people with Parkinson's, and it's a drug that's been on the market for a very long time. So
Mm.
your veterinarian can prescribe that for you. And then we do have these prescription diets that we talked about at the beginning, which would
Mhm.
be BD, which is brain
Right.
diet or behavior diet for dogs. They came out with a cat diet. Those are the Hills diets. And then, like I said, Purina has
Mm.
two. They have the NeuroCare, which is the prescription level, and then the Bright Minds, which you can buy over the counter, not a
Mhm.
prescription, and it's recommended for dogs over age 7. It comes in a couple of different
Yeah.
flavors, and you can get it without too much trouble.
Mhm.
And it's pretty remarkable how much of a difference it can make in pets. We did some of the clinical trials a number of years ago for one of the products that came to market, And in fact, I had a blind basset hound that was one of the 10 dogs in the clinical trial. And one of my own personal dogs was in the clinical trial. She was 13 at the time, and I took her to the National Dog Show that year. And she looked and acted like she was 9 or 10. Now, it didn't make her 2 years old again, but it made her more the equivalent of a 9 or 10-year-old dog. So it basically took 3 or 4 years off of her life. The blind basset hound was blind because of glaucoma. And the client who had her dog in the study was so impressed with the diet and the improvement that it made in her dog's quality of life that she moved from Wisconsin to Missouri
Told
and
me.
took a job with a pet food company making the diet because she was a vet tech to start with, so she wasn't just like Joe Schmo off the street.
Right.
She was a vet tech that had worked at the medical college in Wisconsin for a number of years, and so she had a skill set that put her in the position to go work for this pet food company. But she quit her job in Wisconsin, packed up everything she had, all of her dogs, her husband, everything she had, and moved to Missouri so she could work for the pet food company. So there's some pretty impressive stuff that we can do. And if we
Yeah.
could do some of those things with our diet, like think how much better we would be if your brain function improved and your weight improved and your
I'm a
liver and
get
kidney and
get.
heart function.
Like, I'm
Just
raising
saying.
my hand. Is there an equivalent kibble for fluffy girls that are pushing
Well,
60? Because I'm just saying. I,
what I do is when I go to these meetings on nutrition, I sit next to the nutritionist or the veterinarian that developed
Mhm.
the diet and I go, what supplements do you take? Because I'm gonna go home and start taking those. So I get some pretty good information. I got some information today. I'm like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
gotta look at these
Yeah.
supplements, like, this could be helpful."
Uh,
So,
good.
there are definitely nutritional things that we can do for ourselves, but it's not quite as easy because it's not in a little package that
Yep.
is
Yep.
100% of what you eat, because we all know you're gonna go get the ice cream out of the freezer, or you're gonna have that extra muffin at breakfast, or the
Whatever.
fries or whatever.
Right.
So it unfortunately doesn't always work as well as it could if we were 100% on board with the diets that our doctors would really like us to eat.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying there are some things that we could consider doing for ourselves and for our pets nutritionally that can make a big difference, not just in their weight, but in some other things as well.
Right.
And things like kidney failure. People don't understand that the dog food and the cat food that are made for pets with kidney failure can help those dogs live 2 or 3 years longer. Those
Yeah.
cats live 2 or 3 years longer
Yeah.
on the right diet. So they're kind of resistant to change.
Mhm.
But if they could see what we see as veterinarians and see those levels on the blood work
Mhm.
go back to normal and how much better they are, we really would do a better job if we would be compliant with dog food and cat food recommendations made by our veterinarians for prescription diets. And I'm not trying to push any particular
Mhm.
company here. They're all of the companies that make prescription foods are really good, and they can really have a big impact on our quality of life.
Excellent. Okay, so two pieces of the final conversation. Not, no pun intended. Um, so the actual point of euthanasia and going through that, and then I wanted to have a special conversation about when that happens for a young dog, right? Because I all of it is bad, but I think there's an extra layer of trauma that goes with our younger dogs when we lose them. So talk to us from a veterinarian's perspective about the the pets there. It's in your care. It's hard for people sometimes to stay with their pets. How important is that? All of that piece, please.
To stay during the euthanasia, I think it's
Yep.
absolutely critical.
Right.
I think it's hard for some owners. Other owners are really, they would never leave their pet at that point
Right.
in their
Yeah.
life.
In a
Like
million
my
years.
dad, yeah, my dad said, "This is when she needs me most. I'm going to be there for her." And he's absolutely right. And I hear those words ring in my ear frequently.
Yeah.
There are a few clients, a handful of people that cannot bear to be there. They're the same people that can't go to their mother's funeral. I understand that it's really hard emotionally for people, but I think it's really important that we're there for them. And if you don't want to be there for the actual complete euthanasia, you could at least ask for sedation, hold your pet while the sedation takes effect. And so by the time that the sedation has helped them to lose consciousness, then you can exit the room and they can complete the euthanasia. Now, some practices routinely euthanize or sedate everything for euthanasia. Other practices do not. Some places put IV catheters in. Other places give injections into other body parts. So there's a lot of variation depending on regions of the country, I think,
Mhm,
is where
mm,
it varies the most. Is California does things differently than the Midwest. They do everything differently in California than we do in the Midwest, so I understand that. So there are differences in different practices, and you can kind of set up. I mean, when I do a
mm,
euthanasia, I tell the client, this is for them. This is not about me.
right.
If you want to be in the room, you be in the room. If you want your kids in the room, you have your kids in the room. If you want your kids in the car, then have your kids in the car. If the people need to be out of the room and then come back and say goodbye after the pet is gone, whatever it is that is important to you, that's what I want to be for yours. If you want to sit on the floor with them, great. If you want them in your lap, great. If you want them on the table in front of you, I want this to be how you want it. So you have the option to think through some of these options
Mm,
and speak to the veterinarian and the veterinary technician about that. And there are actually companies there. One is called Lap of Love.
mm,
That's a national chain. There are some smaller groups that do euthanasias, that do home euthanasias.
mm,
For some people that's suitable. When my kids lost dogs, one of
mm,
my kids said, absolutely, I want the dog euthanized in my bedroom where she
mm,
was born.
mm,
I want to be there. My son said, nope, not doing it. I don't want it at home. So we
mm,
all have our, I mean, these are my own kids. Like, they're born 20 months apart, and they had completely different opinions about how they wanted this to play out. It's not your veterinarian's euthanasia. It is yours. So before you get to that point, it's sort of like birthing. You should set up a plan and
mhm,
speak to your veterinary professionals about, this is what is important to me. This is how I want it to go. Can I leave the room without having to walk through the lobby, let everybody see that I look like a mess? Um, are you taking the pet home with you for burial? Are you making other arrangements for burial? Is the veterinary clinic sending them out for cremation? Do you want a private cremation? Do you want a group cremation? Do you want a hair left? Do you want a paw print? Do you want ashes that can be turned into a necklace? I mean, there's a million variables of how this works.
mm,
And so you want to have the options to kind of think this through and give yourself the space to
mm,
make some decisions when you're not in the throes of falling
mm.
apart, because you will fall apart. Even if you
You
think you're not,
you
you're
will.
going to fall apart. You think you're going to be brave? Look, you're not even brave talking about it.
I can't even talk about it. I mean, truthfully,
Yeah.
this is me. This is talked to you before about the couple different reasons why I'm not a veterinarian. This is one of them. Like I can't even function just talking about it. And I have euthanized more dogs than I would like to discuss.
Yeah.
Um,
And not because it was convenient, but
no,
simply because it
because
was
it's
time
the
for
right
life
thing to
to
do for whatever reason.
yes.
Um,
And the kindest thing we can do for our pets
mhm,
is to let them go when they are suffering. And we cannot do a kind thing like that for family members. And that hurts my heart. It hurts my head. I
right.
can't change the world.
It's
So just be aware that you can do something kind for your pet, that
yeah,
and if that's the right course of action, your veterinary professional should support you in those decisions. And if they can't, find someone that can. We have some clients that come to us only for euthanasia. I see them only for euthanasia. I'm
oh well.
like, where do you go the rest of the time? And they're like, well, some people don't wanna go back to the same clinic that
Right.
took care of them, because they
Sure.
they they don't wanna go back with another pet. It's uncomfortable. Some people don't wanna be in the same room again. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this.
Mm,
So, don't feel like you're unusual in how this works, because everybody has triggers that are different, and you need to understand your personal needs, wants, and your family's needs and wants. I There will be people that husband leaves the room, wife
yeah.
stays, kids leave the room, one kid stays, two kids leave. Yeah,
Right.
it's very personal, and it should be respected.
Yeah. 100% on all of that. And then our final special piece, for the times that it is a young dog, whether it is whatever, all the reasons that it can be that it is a dog that has not lived its full life. Um, Advice on working through that for the owners. Because as you
Are we
can
talking?
see, I'm still struggling with my own
I
issues.
know. So when we talk about euthanizing a young dog, it may be because of a serious health problem
Yep,
that happens even in
yep,
young dogs. It may be behavioral. If the
yep.
dog is dangerous, um, it's a
Check
very,
mark,
very
check
hard
mark.
decision.
Yeah, been there, done
Yep.
both of those things.
Yeah, and if the dog is dangerous, sometimes euthanasia is the safest thing to do,
Yep,
because you cannot live with your own emotions if the dog caused serious harm to a human.
Yep.
So as hard as that is to be a decision that you have to make, that might happen. We see dogs sometimes when they're 3 or 4 years old that have serious cancer, serious life-threatening other conditions, whether it's heart, whether it's kidneys, whether it's, liver. There's a lot of reasons that we can lose pets. So unfortunately, those things can occur. And again, you need to work with a veterinary professional that's willing and able to support you. And if you can't find that person, go out and look at some of the other places that you can go. You can find another veterinary clinic. You can find the home euthanasia services. You can get, counseling. All of our clients that euthanize a pet get a phone call from a grief counselor so that it helps them to at least have an outlet if they need it. Some people are like, no, I'm okay. And other people absolutely need several weeks of counseling. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, a lot of times it's the only connection that you have with the outside world. A lot of people that are living by themselves, the only thing that they have is a pet. They don't have family. They don't have a number of other pets. I mean, I have clients that get a new pet before the old pet goes because
Mhm.
they don't want to come home to an empty house.
Right.
I think that's a really legitimate reason to have another
100%.
pet, is not wanting to open the door and have no one there to greet you. So everybody's different, and you need to understand those things about yourself. There's good books out there for children. There's some really good books that can help you prepare
Yeah.
them. There's one called The 10th Good Thing About Barney. There's one Mr. Rogers wrote.
Right.
So, help your children with this, because this may be the first loss that a child has of someone close to them. And it's not a grandparent, it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a
Mhm.
hamster, it's,
Right.
whatever. And so we need to help the children work through this as well. And you may be so wrapped up in your own emotions that you forget that your 4-year-old is struggling. And kids at 4 understand this way better than we give them credit for.
I'll tell you, the first time I ever saw my dad cry, like I was, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. It would have been like third or fourth grade, somewhere in that, kind of time
Hmm.
frame. And he had a Chesapeake Bay Retriever that he had found. It was wandering. He never could find a home for it. And we kept it. And she was a great dog. And she was phenomenal bird dog and, all the great things. But she was also a very old school Chessie, and she bit people. And
Hmm.
my dad finally put her down, behavioral euthanasia, because he was very rightfully concerned that, if we were playing with our friends and it got too rough, she would take one of the kids out.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time I ever saw him cry.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we need to really recognize that those are all legitimate
Yep.
emotions. And if you need counseling, you need help, that's okay. So I suggest anybody that's driving right now maybe should pull over, because
Right,
at this
because
point,
Laura's literally sobbing and trying to hold it together. But that's me, right? I need more counseling than anybody's got time for. So
oh boy.
yeah, but it's important, and I think it's an important conversation, and I wanted us to be the ones to have this conversation with our listeners, um,
Mhm.
because compassion and empathy is a thing. So
Oh yeah.
I
And
got it.
don't let anybody ever say to you, "What's the big deal? It was just a cat." Oh,
Oh
no, no,
God.
no, no, no,
Oh
no,
God.
no, no,
No, no, please
no.
don't ever do
This
that.
person is not in your circle of friends anymore. If they don't understand that that
No,
dog or that cat
no.
was part of your family and
Yep.
was very emotionally important to you,
Yep.
that person needs to be exiting your friendship circle,
Yep.
because they're
Drop
clearly not the
kicked.
dog or cat person. Yeah,
Drop kicked.
clearly not. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think it's really important that you know that it's okay to have emotions and that it's
Yep.
okay to get help, and
Yep.
that you are not alone when you are suffering through these things. And many veterinarians and veterinary technicians and assistants are sobbing in the exam room with everybody else. We have boxes of Kleenex everywhere.
Right.
We need to be prepared for those things. And, some veterinary clinics will give you a little medallion. I mean, there's a million different ways for
Right.
this to play out.
Right.
So you need to just know yourself and know your veterinary clinic. And maybe if you've had an experience at the veterinary clinic that was really good or really bad, you need to share that. What's interesting to my staff and to me consistently is we will get comments from clients that say, "Thank you for the euthanasia." And
Mm.
you're like, "Well, we did amazing medicine to save your dog, or we did a, tremendous surgery to save your cat." And you said, "Well, that's nice. Thanks." But when it came to euthanasia, you were really engaged and heartfelt about how important that
Mm.
emotional experience was for you, because we take really good care of the clients that are going through this. And we've, like a lot of veterinary clinics that have, I hate to say perfected because that's not really right, because everything is different, but have the compassion, the empathy, the insight to know that you are
Yeah.
struggling and suffering. We have clients that thank us for a euthanasia more than they thank us for
Mm.
any other service that we provide. And I think that speaks volumes about the human experience and how important it is that we support people.
Yeah. And how emotional it is for people when they lose a pet. So I
Yeah.
think that that's pretty amazing. So I promised you guys it wouldn't all be sadness and tears. We had a few moments of levity. We will have more levity next week, I promise. No more sadness and tears. So Marty's giving me balloons so that I'll laugh. So that's good. All right, Marty, go save your bank account from Dr. Dan at the auction, and
I'll try, man. It might be
do
too
not
late.
catch the plague, and we will
I'm good.
talk again soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on the Marty and Laura Show. We're excited to bring you these unique, fun, fact-based conversations about pet health. We hope you'll join us on social. Stop by the website to sign up for an extra tip of the week for your pet. While you're at it, do us a favor, please, and leave a review wherever you find your podcasts. The Marty and Laura Show is produced by Pure Dog Talk, Inc., sound design and editing by Premium Audio Services.